Welcome, welcome. This is the That's Exactly Who She Thinks She Is podcast. I'm your host, Aoife. I am a mind, body, and success coach. I help sensitive, driven women whose bodies and lives have been asking for change for a long time. And all of the tools that I teach are the exact tools I used to break free from decades of chronic pain and illness and to find my truth across all areas of life. So if any of that resonates with you, please go to my website, check out my programs, and see if there's anything there for you. Today, we have a very special guest, Scotty Stiles. Scotty is a pain elimination coach and mind body practitioner and a dear friend. So I'm super excited to have you here. Yeah, Scotty and I are going to chat today about survival patterns, the patterns that had our self-worth, our self-love very low, and were at the root of our health conditions. And what we're really going to dive into today is the journey of seeing and naming, exposing those patterns, and then the journey of what it's like to kind of walk through and stay on the path of unwinding those patterns. So thank you so much for being here, Scotty. I'm so excited.
Yes, thanks for having me, Aoife. I'm excited to be here, and this is a juicy topic, and I know we're always talking about this offline too, and so hopefully the listeners will get something out of it today.
Yes, exactly. We are. And it's so beautiful how I was thinking about our conversations that we have offline and how we chat with each other so much, but how it always comes down to supporting each other with those patterns. We're just like naming them to each other. We're just calling them out and just like, hey, I'm like, hey, Scotty, I just like had this pattern today. And da 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 da. It's just like naming it, exposing it, holding it for each other in love. And that's really every time we chat, I feel like that's where it goes.
Totally, and I guess like that would be like kind of like when we're looking at the solutions of how to heal a lot of these patterns. Like connection is so huge, and exposure and all that stuff, which we can get into. But yeah, like when we're struggling with chronic symptoms that we aren't even realizing are connected to this version of ourselves that we're repressing and all these things. We just ultimately feel so alone. So that in and of itself is kind of like the starting point to look at, like, are you truly alone, and is there somebody that you can community or people in your life that you can open up to so that you can heal this part of yourself too.
For real. And I guess having people who can hold that part of you, because yeah, I've like brought patterns forward to some other people and they've been like, well, oh my God, I feel sorry for you. Because even though they definitely have the same patterns, they're like, I'm not loving that pattern in me. So I can't do that for you.
That's true, and we have to be careful who we share our truths with, because not everybody has our best interests in mind. um so that's key too, right?
Totally. So, yeah, why don't we get into some of the survival patterns maybe that you have seen and that have you've named in your own life that you've seen have been connected to your own pain and symptoms or blockages in your life. I talk a lot about people pleasing and conflict avoidance is one that I've really only began to get to know and name in more recent years. But yeah, let us know what juicy survival patterns do you see in yourself?
Yeah. Well, growing up gay, I had to sort of, we talk about editing ourselves. I had to put on masks. I had to kind of manicure who I wanted to be seen as in the world at a very young age, because I don't think there was any language presented to me by any friends or family. They didn't really have the words to explain, that being gay was okay. In the 80s and 90s, I didn't really see a lot of that in society, maybe like glimpses of it like in Hollywood and TV and whatnot. But ultimately, it just led to me feeling like I had to hide parts of myself. Um, and that took a lot of work, right? And we're, when we're hiding our sexuality, we have to do that on a really subconscious level too. So that just becomes a pattern with everything in your life. And so, you know, years went on and eventually I did come out. And what's interesting looking back now is that, you know, I thought that everything was over. I came out kind of late for what, at the time I thought it was kind of late, like maybe age 22, 23. Um, but the survival patterns didn't stop there. Years went on and I developed chronic pain and symptoms, and of course, I wouldn't have found out about mind body healing if I hadn't tried all of the things that didn't work. But who knew that my chronic pain and symptoms were linked to something about who I was, my personality, having to hide my sexuality, the fact that my brain and nervous system, learn how to be hypervigilant and on high alert, from all of those years of hiding who I was. And of course, like if we look at what Dr. Sarno talks about repressing emotions, well, it makes perfect sense. I was literally repressing who I was, and shoving all of that down, was just, putting my brain on like this, hair trigger of, you can't be this way. And so all of the coping mechanisms, um, they are personality traits, but really they're just ways of coping in the world, like um, people pleasing or wanting to be seen a certain way. So goodism and just wanting people to like you, trying to achieve great things in life because you just want to be seen for other things than something that might be um, too hard to, show the world inside. So maybe it's like, I'm really good at school or I'm really good at music. So people know me for that. There's so many different funny ways that I wanted to be sort of seen as at a younger age. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, so once I sort of realized, and even still, I'm unlearning these patterns, right? Like I've healed my chronic symptoms, but things come up and I can still go back into those old patterns and I can even still get an acute flare up of pain that's related to some sort of conditioning of how I operated through hypervigilance at a younger age. So, um, it's lifelong, this healing journey, right? Doesn't mean your pain or symptoms have to be lifelong, but it's just so fascinating how it's all connected, and it kind of blows my mind. It almost kind of just is like, yeah, that was meant to happen. I kind of look back at my younger self and sort of say, oh, of course, that makes sense. Like I knew that something was connected to emotional charge. I knew that something was connected to this feeling of this part of myself that I could never face, and that one day I would have to talk about it.
So incredible just hearing those little snippets of your wisdom and story. And I can relate so much, even though I'm straight, cisgender, white woman, like, I still felt like I had to develop masks and and ways of editing myself so that I could feel safe in the world. And I feel like I don't know for what reason I felt so unsafe, but I definitely felt like I had to overcompensate. There was something about me that was so deeply shameful. There was something about me that was so deeply wrong and bad and shameful. And as a result, I had to compensate and I was masking so much throughout life, and I have heard that neurodivergence and autism is hard to detect in little girls because they can intuit so easily what someone wants from them, how someone wants them to behave, so they can just mask and behave in that way, and that I really relate to that. And here I was just like self-betraying, and trying to achieve or be all these different versions of me. And you kind of nailed it when you said like it was so much work. Like no wonder, like when I think back, and it was such a dark and confusing and exhausting place to be when you have all that going on, and at the same time you have like no answers or solutions or whatever. And it's like what a burden to be walking around with, but yeah, I just think no wonder my body was so stressed out and sick. No wonder I felt so bad. No wonder I couldn't get momentum going in different parts of my life. And God, you know what? No wonder I couldn't have honest conversations with people because how could I? I was so scrambled up in myself. I was just so scrambled. And like you said, this is a lifelong journey because I still get scrambled and I still feel the need to put on a mask. Sometimes I don't know if I'm safe, from time to time. It's not like you just flip a switch. And I find that part of the journey and I appreciate our connection so much because it's like you were talking about coming out. It's like this very big truth, and it's like you naming that part of you that you didn't have, the support culturally, um, for. And there's times where I have named very big truths in my life that have been hard to name, and then you expect, okay, I've said the big thing. I've loved this part of me that didn't have a voice. I gave this part of me a voice. It didn't have a voice. You expect like everything, the like heavens to open and everything to just like work out then. But in fact, I have then felt the I don't want to say like backlash, but the exposure of that, all those parts that we were hiding, they were like neatly tucked away. They're suddenly like naked and raw, and they then need some time, right?
Mm. Yeah, of course. And patterns are patterns and they're learned and by the nervous system. Like it takes time to rewire the brain. So to go back to old patterns is totally normal and we don't need to beat ourselves up for it. I still have situations where I have that feeling that comes up, that rising of, shame or anxiety in my body where it's like I feel like a kid again. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But so we all feel like little kids, even though we're, adults walking around, but we're all like little kids in a part of our brain here. So um yeah, I love what you're saying about how it's very similar to you, like the world that you were brought into. You just there's parts of you that felt safe or unsafe for whatever reason, I'm sure for women it's like we're born into this world where the patriarchy is very dominant and saying things have to be a certain way. And same as a gay man, like I'm, is born into the straight world and like how do I fit in there? And then, so as a result, when you're trying to hide something or trying to sort of overperform, like whether you're a woman or a gay man or there is some other part of you that it feels like you need to fit into the world in a certain way. Um, Again, it's that manicuring, and so it's like, if I don't wanna be seen as, too sensitive or emotional as a young, gay boy, which, by the way, are great things, great attributes to have, I'm gonna try to look really tough, and I'm gonna try to be, hyper masculine and all of these things. And what's fascinating too is that after coming out, then now you're, like, kind of immersed in the gay world, let's say, and, these patterns are still going on with other gay men in relation to gay men, even when you're out of the closet. Like in the culture, you might still not want to be seen as too feminine or something, and that's kind of not the best thing to be perpetuated through the gay community even. And so there's still a lot of that going on for people and kind of this internalized homophobia that can still be happening for people as well. So we are always working on unwinding those patterns and really seeing like we can be sensitive, we can be emotional, we can be vulnerable. The reason why it feels dangerous still even after coming out is because we learned that when we had to hide those parts of ourselves, but in fact it is the vulnerability and self-empathy and connection to others that will help us feel okay with who we are.
I love that so much. And I actually realized about myself that I had so much internalized misogyny from such a young age. I hated anything feminine. Like, I hated Barbies. I hated any wouldn't wear dresses. And, like, for sure, I was a tomboy. I liked those things. There was a part of that that's totally my personality. But there was a fear and hatred about my sensitivity and my femininity. And I yeah, I've been really getting to know that about myself. I really identified as being hyper masculine as a kid, and my auntie got us these T-shirts and these pens that we could draw on, and my brother wrote his name in this cool design, and I wrote macho Aoife. I was like, not princess. You mean like I was like not didn't want to be a princess. I wanted to be some like macho. dude on a motorbike. I had this very, visual. I had this visual identity that was the opposite of soft. I thought, okay, if I'm gonna make it in this world, I'm gonna harden up, I'm gonna be tough, I'm gonna be macho, I'm gonna be like a little Rottweiler. And that's just the message I got. I was born into this world so sensitive and so open, and that was my reaction to the world. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning to soften and to not to harden up. And for me, it's really caught me out with intimacy and relating to men, because I kind of get combative almost. I'm like, I gotta compete with them and go into battle with them rather than like soften and allow myself to be feminine. And of course, men and women, we all have the feminine and the masculine energy. It's not like confined to gender, but yeah, and I know, like, just shutting down that part of me and feeling combative and macho and hardened, like, that was hypervigilance. That was a state of an overstimulated, overreactive nervous system, and you want to see me in secondary school as a teenager. I was fighting. Every day I was fighting the teachers. I was like, bullying people. I was just like, I was in this state of combat. It's like it's taken so long for that to unwind. And as you said, like it's always unwinding more.
Yeah. Do you think that's like you were kind of combating with yourself too? Like even though it was kind of outward, it's sort of this inward action at the same time?
Totally. It was just me against me. I don't know, but and other people were, yeah, just a part of that story, but for
Yeah.
sure.
I think of Dr. Sarno, how he says, that the reason why we have chronic symptoms due to repression is the fact that we have this anger turned inward. And so I always think of that quote, like anger turned inward. Like, am I being really angry with myself? Even though it appears on the surface that it's like, it looks like I'm kind of taking it out on people sometimes, or I'm frustrated and all this stuff. But really, the person that I'm angry with is myself. And that's why I'm behaving that way, maybe.
Totally. It's misplaced anger for sure, or it's like, you know, like when I have and then it's also okay, it's also that, conditioning of it not being safe, okay to be angry, so it'll get scrambled. It's like this scrambling, right? You're like, you're something is hurting or you've been betraying yourself, so it's like this, built up anger towards yourself, and then, yeah, something happens. There's all this scramble of anger, I feel. Um so, yeah, and also the conditioning of that it's not okay to be angry, or it's not okay to you know, name things or be fully honest in connections. So then all that anger gets kind of scrambled up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No wonder we learned how to repress our true feelings, right? Yeah. And yeah, I think back to of, having to hide those parts of myself. There was kind of a barometer of shame was a barometer of what I didn't want to feel. So anytime like something felt uncomfortable, it could have been just people having like eyeballs on me, and then they might not even have been thinking of anything or judging me or anything like that, but it would just be this sort of like projected onto myself of like, oh no, what if they think this way? And I can think back to a time, even like in grade 5, and there was one classmate of mine that could pinpoint that at certain times I would feel uncomfortable, whether that was, if the teacher called on me or whatnot. And she, kids are kids, but she was able to find out that I turned red at certain times. And of course, this vulnerability, or sorry, this, shame that I had, it was very internalized, and toxic shame is like this feeling that we're completely unworthy and there's something wrong with us. So yes, I felt like maybe there was something I needed to hide, but she was able to kind of see that there's this barometer that I had that would gauge whether or not I was feeling a certain way just by seeing that my face would turn red. And it was my worst nightmare. Let me just say it. And at that time, I can't even believe I'm talking about it now. But because back then I thought I have to hide this part of me myself forever. I can never speak about this. But she was able to pinpoint like and say, "Oh, you're turning red right now." And she could even look at me and say, "You're turning red," even when I wasn't, and then I would. Right? But here's the thing, it's like all we're human beings. We all experience things. Your face can get flushed, and that's not a bad thing. Like my face might still turn red and I might not even notice it. It's what we make of it, what we interpret that as being dangerous. And I think that made me feel even more hypervigilant. Like, oh my goodness, somebody's watching me. My face is going to turn red now. I can't let them see who I really am. It's like if my face turns red, now they know I'm gay, because that's like it's like a yeah, it's the truth teller. Really, it's like a lie detector test. That's the word. So if somebody were to say to me like, "Are you gay?" Well, they're going to know the answer because my face is going to turn bright red. So that right there was like, I really, really have to be careful at hiding and not screw it up, because people are going to know. And and that goes on into adulthood, even after coming out. And it's like we feel things in our body, and that's okay. Again, like you could just turn red based on something so innocuous and think, well, our brains make associations to so many things that um, yeah, don't really make sense anyway. And so, um, being okay with that is what I work on now. So whether it's like, wow, I'm in this uncomfortable social setting and somebody's asking me a very simple question, like, who are you? What do you do? Like getting really real about that and being like, why does that make me so uncomfortable? It's not about them. It's about my interpretation of myself. And we're just building confidence as we go through life. I think a lot of the reason why I couldn't talk about who I really was I just felt insecure. And it's a process, nobody has to be perfect at it. I think perfectionism is like just this coping mechanism that we think is going to keep us safe. Um, but it won't. And trying to be too perfect, it's, those standards are then too high. And now we're just even more hyper vigilant, because we're trying to be too perfect. So just knowing that you don't have to be perfect, and that your face is allowed to turn red, and you don't have to have the right answer, and nobody's really judging you. That can help you relax a little bit, maybe, and not be so hyper vigilant.
I love that. And I have been reflecting for myself on how I think that I adopted control at some point. I adopted control as a way of like regulating myself for a lack of regulation, being very dysregulated. I at some point adopted like control. And I feel like when I go red or I shake or these different things are exposing, it's like I'm losing control. And it's like when I was really combative, I was more in control of my own narrative because I was like being a certain way rather than feeling exposed and vulnerable. Um, and then, of course, that led into he- healing, like when you introduce meditation or uh, all the health food diets and all the different things without having got into these survival patterns, without having got into this place of more self-love, then all of those tools also just fell into this pattern of control. And the more I felt in control, the more I felt, yeah, like more ease, but it wasn't a sustainable state. And as soon as it broke, then as in I would go red or I would shake or and the control would break, then I would feel very dysregulated. So I can definitely say since finding the mind body tools, that one of the main things that I have been seen healing within myself because I've started to find my own regulation, another way of regulating myself, that being dropping the control on life actually and on myself.
Yeah. Yeah, just letting it be, riding the wave, even if it's uncomfortable, like that's okay. Because it's that control and this sort of it's like I like to say it's like having this dysfunctional relationship with fear. Like, oh no, I can't feel this way. No, that's uncomfortable. I don't want that. And that leads to us having these chronic symptoms because, you have a sensation that comes up, you don't like it. And now or you're labeling it, you think it's a structural injury or you've done something wrong, and your nervous system is just sensitized. And then the more we want it to go away, and oh my goodness, it's just going to keep getting louder. So it's kind of the same thing with the survival patterns and with these uncomfortable emotions and feelings that we're feeling all of the time that are just normal. I know we are talking about, exposure and, thinking of, specific scenarios of like, oh wow, I felt that this week, I felt like that shame coming up and I and just this mindfulness, we learn how to do different things in the mind body community and on our own healing journey. Like if we have mindfulness to what is, and then we bring self compassion to it once we recognize it, like, okay, wow, I'm feeling this feeling of shame coming up in my body. Um, and we want to recognize that a lot of healing is being in the body and recognizing, embodiment and feeling safe with that sensation and getting really curious about it. Like, oh wow, it feels like my heart rate is kind of getting a little higher, or some tension across my forehead, or some heat, and just normalizing that and saying, yeah, this is okay, and just kind of watching it. And then it doesn't control you anymore. We don't have to be afraid of it. Um, it's just a part of us that wants to protect us. That's what the nervous system is always trying to do anyway. It's always scanning for threats. It's always scanning for danger. And of course, it's scanning for a lot of danger from how we learn to protect ourselves in childhood. And that's just a pattern. But we can recognize, oh, it's doing that thing again. It's just thinking like there's all these like take tigers out there trying to, come after us. But that's an illusion. And so we just name the feeling and say, oh, it's just the feeling. It's just responding in this way. And, through neuroception, our brain has this ability to sort of look for threats on a higher scale. And some people have like a lower threshold of neuroception and might not might not be so hypervigilant. We need a little bit of it. We need a good degree of it. Otherwise, you would like walk out into the street and not look both ways before you cross the street. Like we want to be like a little bit, on guard. Um, yeah.
I love that. And it's making me think also about, because I identify as being a very sensitive person. And I think that that can make my nervous system more like open, more sensitive to sensations, even within my body. Like there was a call, one of my, these women that I work with in another job, and she was saying, "Oh, maybe I'm sensitive to adrenaline or something." And I was like, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." And I just wanted to tune in because I know you talk also about being sensitive. And, you know, it's made me think so much about that and how that's something that from when I first, when I was little, that's something I really rejected, wanted to be macho Aoife, wanted to shut that down. And then I started to heal. And there's some things like survival patterns that I change about myself. And then there's other things I learn that these are not changing. This is me. And being sensitive is one of those things, and being like sensitive to adrenaline. And you know, with all the healing and all the different, being out there with my business and all these different things, like I still get really overwhelmed with public speaking or with groups of people. And I'm starting to realize that, so one of the things all my clients go on when they go on this journey is they really discover their gifts, right? You can't not really hone in and discover your gifts and purpose when you start to raise your self-worth and connect deeper with yourself and resolve all your conditioning. Obviously, what's going to happen, right? And so I often think about my sensitivity as a gift, and I'm like, this sensitivity, it makes me really good one-on-one with people. It makes me really good with a group of clients. It makes me exceptionally good at like tracking other people's emotional worlds and sensing other people's needs and being able, like, this is like my gifts are getting supercharged by this healing journey, right? They're just honing in more and getting supercharged. That does not take away my sensitivity. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always this subtle desire to, like, that conditioning of what it means to be confident out there and not exposed, right? That conditioning didn't just disappear, right? And then I do remind myself like, this is my gift. Like, I am sensitive, and that is serving me so well in so many parts of my life. And yeah, I guess, like, getting to know yourself in such a deep and personal way is the outcome. Like, you might go to heal you use these tools to heal your health or to achieve a certain goal, but the outcome in reality is that you are gonna get to know yourself in a very deep and personal way. Your gifts, what it means to be you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Instead of seeing your sensitivity as like a hindrance or a bad thing, it really does, help you just become more aware of what's going on around you. And, that's why, people like you and I are good at reading maybe other people and connecting with them on this level. And so also, if you are highly sensitive, you have a highly sensitive nervous system. And that's a good thing because, if you're having some sort of somatic sensation or emotion coming up in your body, then it's giving your attention and that there's something you can do or act on. It's just kind of harnessing, what it is that you can do and that you're not like a victim to it. That it's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of tension here, or I'm feeling this coming up in my body, and really learning how to trust and move and work with that so that we know, okay, well, we know our nervous system is just trying to protect us. And what is it saying that I need to do here? What can I do for myself? And we want to kind of recognize how can we be kinder to ourselves and not, again, not use that sensitivity against ourselves to beat ourselves up or criticize ourselves. But yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying about like, wow, it's, um, being in groups of people and just again it's that whole idea of being seen and all of those eyeballs on us, and I think that's pretty normal for most people in the world. Like public speaking is really difficult, and but it's one of these things too in life that the more we practice it, we build that muscle, and the more we practice vulnerability. Brene Brown talks about the antidote to shame is vulnerability. So if you're on stage doing public speaking and just being really vulnerable and again maybe lowering that desire to be perfect, even though it's still going to creep up there, you might not feel as nervous. Sure, you're going to always have nerves no matter what, I suppose, to a certain extent, but just being a little more vulnerable, because everyone's a human being, everyone is flawed in this way, everybody has insecurities.
For sure. I love it. And so tell me some of the, I suppose, like glimmers. A lot of people, when you're on the path to healing your health or going for a certain goal, you get focused on that, right? So everyone, you're like, I want this symptom to be gone. I want to achieve this goal. Why hasn't it arrived yet? Why? And you're looking at the goal. And I always say that a watch pot doesn't boil and to focus on your glimmers. And so tell me, like, what like, okay, you got into this to get out of pain. Like, what did you get out of it? Like, what are some of your peak or just like really, subtle but important glimmers or outcomes of this journey?
Mhm. I think in my chronic pain years, I really wasn't ready to be with even anybody else. And so, I have a partner that I love, and I had to do a lot of self healing. I was single for 7 years. I knew, especially at the beginning of those 7 years, that I couldn't be with anybody. So there was a lot I needed to heal with myself before I could be with somebody else. So that was a big thing that eventually came in my life, and then, of course, professionally, I kind of was lost and didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think my healing journey led me, obviously, to doing this work with clients. And never in my wildest dreams did I expect that this is where I would land, helping people with healing their chronic symptoms. And it's very often tied into, the reason why we're struggling is um, with symptoms is very tied into our identity, as we're talking about, as well as our life's purpose. And, I had some really interesting symptoms along the way where I was questioning myself or had a lot of self doubt. And one symptom I had was foot pain. And, the analogy would be like I wasn't standing up for myself or, feeling like I was stepping in the right direction, or, I felt like I really needed to harness this career of being a coach to say, yeah, this is something I can do, and to not listen to that self-doubt. And so really this idea of self-empowerment, it's not always, comfortable or easy, but just moving in that direction, it can and very likely can be what's keeping you stuck with symptoms. So my foot pain completely resolved once I really, stopped just sticking my toe in, but my whole foot, feet first into the coaching business that I wanted to create. And so, yeah, symptoms are always like a guidepost so many times in my life. Um, there's always like funny little signs of it. Yeah, little things here and there. Like I could even have like a little bit of tension and kind of think, oh, was I just being really hard on myself? Like, was I just criticizing my body or something? We all have patterns again that will come up, but it's what we do with them that can help us recognize, oh, okay, if I want this shoulder pain to stop nagging at me, maybe I can recognize that it's not helpful and probably not even true to say, oh, you don't look good today or something like that. You know, it's it's um, it's not who you are. Who you are is has nothing to do with how you look. And you can let go of that. You can just be who you are and love yourself no matter what.
I love that. It really does. Your body turns into just a like information giver. And I can very much relate to things still coming up. And it's like I've still jumped into patterns like very recently. It's so funny. I decided I could just work all of the time for a short period of time and give myself no time off. I would could just betray myself, my not give myself any nourishment, and I could do that. And of course, a few weeks in, I'm like getting burnt out, my thoughts going super negative, and it's like my body's like, "No, girl, you're not gonna do that. Like, you cannot do that." So I'm like, "Right, I need to delegate. I need to this, need to make some calls. Also need to tell people, hey, I've been burnt out. This is how I'm feeling." Um, so rather than living in the dark of that, knowing that language and just constantly running into burnout and constantly maybe like feeling like you only are dipping a toe in your creative project or your purpose and not being able to stand fully in it, or these different things that you described, it's like, oh, this you have this whole like data system, which is your body, and you have tools to unlock the fears and the blockages that are underneath that expression. And therefore, you still have to move through the feelings, you still have to experience the manifestation of it, but you know how to get to you have the map, like, you have the treasure map, and so but you still have to walk the path.
Mhm. Mm. Oh, I love that. It's a
Yeah.
treasure map.
It really is, yeah. I mean, it feels annoying at the time, but it really is because it always leads somewhere, right? It always leads to some breakthrough for me, either, like, monumental breakthrough or, like, just a, "Ah, I need help. Ah, I need to have a conversation."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and if we think about, like, the nervous system bracing and wanting to let go, what are the little shifts that we can make? And sometimes it's not, like, doesn't have to be like a huge external shift. Like a lot of people will ask me, like, well, do I have to change my job or change my relationship now in order to heal? It's not always that. Like it can be, or maybe it gets to that later on or something. But a lot of it is just these little internal shifts and how we're relating to things. Because again, like healing symptoms is like changing your relationship to the symptoms themselves, and then changing your relationship to yourself and how you feel about yourself and being kinder to yourself and yeah, these little things that we can alter that aren't, necessarily huge can work.
It all comes down to the relationship with yourself. It's like all symptoms, all signs, all life problems, all blockages, they're all guiding you back,
Yeah.
right, to the relationship with yourself. And when you change your relationship with yourself, your external world might stay exactly the same job. You don't have to blame your job anymore, same partner, you don't have to blame them anymore. Or it could all completely, upheaval situation and change. You don't know that. And that's not your job to control or speculate or whatever, but your job is to just come home to yourself and see what happens.
Yeah. The irony is that you might change it later on because you've changed your relationship to it in the process, I guess, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm so grateful. I love that we both have the same treasure map so we can hang out and talk about it and support each other. Is there anything else that you want to share? I'm going to leave all of your details in the show notes and everything so people can get in touch with you and follow you. I know you're really good at your Instagram and all the different things and you take clients. So, yeah, is there anything else you want to share today?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you for having me on, Eva. And I love doing this. So I'd love to do it again sometime. And yeah, people can find me. My Instagram is How to Heal Chronic Pain and other platforms as well. You can find me there. And yeah, if people want to reach out, have any questions, I'm happy to answer as well. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Well, I want to thank you for your story and your vulnerability and your honesty, and also for all the brave things that you've done for yourself in your life, and for sharing it so generously with the world and with me, because I find so much support in just your openness and your honesty. And I'm excited for the future. What's next?
Oh, thank you for sharing yourself with me. And I always love hearing bouncing back and hearing what's going on for you and how your healing journey is going. And oh my goodness, it's so good to be friends with you.
You too, Scotty. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you again.